It was supposed to be a quiet Saturday morning on my ranch. Just me, the wide-open land, and a long-overdue coffee break. But that peace didn't last long. Tires screeched on the gravel driveway. Music blasted from a luxury SUV, and out stepped a group of overconfident teens dressed like they were headed to some influencer pool party. And leading the pack? None other than the notorious spoiled son of the HOA president, Karen herself. The same Karen who once tried to fine me for unapproved barn paint. Yeah, her. This kid didn't bother with introductions. He marched right up to me, sunglasses on, holding some phone like it gave him authority, and barked, "We've reserved this place for a party today. So you need to leave. Now." I thought he was joking at first. My ranch, my land, the nerve. But no, he was dead serious. Turns out his mom told him this part of the property was open to the community, which couldn't be further from the truth. And of course he had no clue who I was, just thought I was some ranch hand. I asked him calmly to leave, and that's when things started to escalate. His voice got louder. His friends started laughing. One even pulled out a phone and started recording, clearly expecting me to snap. But I didn't. Not yet. Because what this kid didn't realize was that not only did I own this land, I was also the county sheriff, and I had a few surprises of my own. What came next turned a backyard squabble into something the entire neighborhood would be talking about for weeks. But just as I was about to show him exactly who he was messing with, another unexpected guest arrived, someone who made the situation even more complicated and way more personal. Just as I took a step forward, ready to put an end to this ridiculous scene, a sleek black car rolled up behind the SUV. Music quieted as everyone turned to look. Out stepped none other than Karen herself. Heels, pearls, and that signature clipboard she always carried around like it was a badge of honor. She didn't even glance at me. Instead, she beelined straight to her son, threw an arm around him, and smiled like this was her big red carpet moment. "Is everything ready for the party, sweetheart?" she asked loud enough for everyone to hear. He nodded and pointed at me like I was the hired help standing in the way. "He's being difficult," the kid muttered. Karen's eyes finally landed on me, and just like that, her smile vanished. "Oh. It's you," she said flatly, squinting like she couldn't quite believe I was real. "This is supposed to be a community celebration, for the neighborhood youth. I told you about this weeks ago." She hadn't. Not a word. And there's no part of the HOA charter that gives anyone permission to throw a party on private ranch land. But facts don't usually matter much to Karen. Her version of truth is whatever sounds best at the time. I could feel my jaw tighten, but I kept my cool. Not because I was scared, but because I knew I had the upper hand. The only problem? This wasn't just about some loud music or entitled teens. It went deeper. The way Karen looked at the ranch, there was something behind it. Something she wasn't saying. And her son, he wasn't just a spoiled kid with a bad attitude. The way he barked orders, the way he acted like he owned the place. It was almost like he believed he did. And that's when I realized there was a whole lot more going on than just a party. I stood there watching them unload folding tables, coolers, and speakers like they were prepping for a festival. Karen didn't ask for permission. She just waved her arms and directed traffic like she ran the whole county. Her son strutted around, barking at the others to move faster, calling himself event manager. It was unreal. They weren't just trespassing. They were acting like this land had always been theirs. I decided not to flash my badge just yet. Something told me this wasn't just another entitled HOA tantrum. The way Karen avoided eye contact, how she kept walking the fence line like she was checking boundaries, it felt off. Too precise, too planned. That's when I noticed something strange near the east pasture, fresh surveyor stakes. I hadn't put them there. As I headed over, I caught a glimpse of Mr. Denton, the quiet real estate agent from the HOA board, speaking, in hushed tones with Karen near the barn. They paused when they saw me, exchanged a look, and quickly moved in opposite directions. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just about a party. They were trying to make a move. Maybe they believed there was a loophole. Maybe they had plans to claim part of the land for development, and this party was their way to start laying the groundwork. Meanwhile, back by the house, one of the teens accidentally let it slip. Karen said this'll all be part of the new community center soon. My gut twisted. There was no proposal for a center, at least not one I'd ever approved. And as sheriff, I would have been the first to know. Unless they were working around me. I kept my distance, watching, listening. Something bigger was happening here. Something Karen and her son didn't want me to uncover. And the deeper I looked, the more it seemed like they'd been plotting this for a long time. I didn't say a word as I walked back toward the barn, keeping my eyes on everyone. Karen's son was now ordering two of the teens to set up speakers right next to my horse corral, blaring music loud enough to spook the animals. That was the last straw. I told them to turn it down, but the kid just smirked and said, "You're gonna regret this when Mom takes the deed." His confidence wasn't just arrogance. It was certainty, like he knew something I didn't. That's when I decided to check the county records. I slipped into the house and pulled up the property database from my office computer. Within minutes, I found it, a pending zoning request filed under a Shell LLC linked to Denton's name. The paperwork showed proposed plans for community recreation development, and the plot it targeted? My ranch's eastern acres. Land that's been in my family for generations. No notice, no public meetings, just a quiet request buried in red tape. My chest tightened as it sank in. They weren't just hosting a party, they were staging a takeover. And if that paperwork went through uncontested, it would give them leverage to dispute my ownership, especially if they convinced people this land had already shifted hands. Outside, the crowd had doubled. More teens, more folding chairs, food trucks lining the road like it was some fair. Karen stood at the center of it all, shaking hands with local board members, pretending like she was some savior of the community. The mayor's aide even showed up, invited under the false impression this was a charity event. I stepped out onto the porch, badge tucked under my flannel, heart pounding. The tension in the air was thick. I knew if I made one wrong move, it could turn into a mess. But if I stayed quiet, they'd bulldoze through everything. My land, my rights, and the truth. And then, right when I was about to confront Karen, her son stepped onto a small makeshift stage, tapped the mic, and announced something that made the whole crowd go silent. With the mic squealing slightly, Karen's son leaned forward and grinned, his voice echoing through the speakers. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate the beginning of our new community center," he said, waving his arms like some kind of hometown celebrity. "Starting next week, this land will be officially repurposed for public use? My mom made it happen. Let's give her a hand." The crowd erupted in polite claps, a few people even cheering. But my blood ran cold. Officially repurposed? That was impossible. Nothing had gone through proper channels. The county paperwork I'd found was pending, not approved. But now, in front of 100 people and a few elected officials, Karen's son had declared it as fact. And if they believed it, momentum would shift fast. I stepped forward, heart pounding, but before I could say a word, I heard a voice behind me. "Sheriff, you might want to see this." It was Deputy Cole, my longtime friend who'd come by on patrol after hearing about the noise. He held out his phone, showing me a photo he'd just snapped behind the barn, an unmarked trailer backed up to my storage shed. The door was open, and inside were tools, feed supplies, and several boxes of my grandfather's old land documents. Documents that hadn't seen daylight in decades. "Someone's been through your things," Cole muttered. "And I don't think it's just for the party." That's when it hit me. They weren't just trying to fake a zoning claim. They were after the original land grants. If Karen got her hands on those and found any gaps, she could try to argue ownership in court, twist the narrative, say the land was never fully transferred. It wasn't just fraud, it was personal. Someone had gone digging through my family's past to try and erase it. Before I could even process it all, Karen took the stage next, smiling like the queen of a parade. "And now," she said, "a very special announcement for the future of this property." Karen cleared her throat, gripping the mic like she was about to unveil a statue in her name. "This land," she began, "has been underused for years. But thanks to a generous anonymous donation and the support of our HOA board, we're thrilled to break ground on a brand new community recreation center, complete with a pool, gardens, and event space for everyone to enjoy." Applause rolled through the crowd like thunder. People were clapping, smiling, some even tearing up. She had them hooked, and just when she turned to gesture at the open field behind her, I stepped up beside the stage, climbed the few steps, and took the mic straight from her hand. The crowd fell silent. "I'm sorry to interrupt," I said, holding my voice steady, "but there's something you all should know before we go cutting any ribbons." I pulled my badge from my pocket and clipped it to my belt, letting the gold catch the light. "I'm Sheriff Cooper, and this land isn't just private property. It's my family's ranch. It's not for sale, lease, or community repurposing." Murmurs broke out immediately, heads turning, faces changing. Karen stiffened beside me, her smile faltering for the first time all day. I turned to the crowd. "There is no legal transfer, no zoning approval, and the paperwork filed with the county was done under a false business name. And—" I looked straight at Karen. "Someone broke into my private storage and tampered with historical land. Records, that's a felony." Gasps. A few of the board members backed away from Karen, whispering to each other. Even her son looked stunned, and just when I thought it was over, Deputy Cole walked up with someone else, an elderly man I hadn't seen in years. "Sheriff," Cole said, "this is Mr. Harwood. He used to work the county land office. Found him digging through old deeds this morning. Said Karen hired him for a property clarification job." Mr. Harwood handed me a folder. Inside were original documents proving that not only was the land never in dispute, but Karen's own home was technically built 6 feet onto our boundary. Now it was her turn to freeze. And the party? Well, it ended a whole lot earlier than planned. As the crowd slowly scattered, the party that was supposed to launch a new era quietly unraveled. The food trucks packed up early, the folding chairs were left half-stacked, and Karen's son disappeared into the SUV without another word. Karen herself stood frozen for a moment longer before stepping down from the stage, avoiding everyone's eyes. She didn't say a word to me, just marched straight to her car and drove off, leaving behind her clipboard and her big plans. Later that evening, I sat on the porch with Deputy Cole, watching the sunset over the same land my grandfather once worked with his bare hands. We sipped coffee and talked about how fast things could get out of control when people put ambition over respect. Cole chuckled. Only Karen could try to stage a land grab and call it a youth celebration. The zoning request was officially denied the next morning, and with Mr. Harwood's testimony and the old land records in my hands, the county opened a quiet investigation into the HOA board's recent activity. Denton resigned shortly after, citing stress. The boundary issue with Karen's property? Let's just say she'll be moving a fence soon. Word got around the neighborhood quickly, and folks who had stayed silent before started showing more respect. A few even came by to apologize for not asking more questions. The whole thing reminded me why protecting your ground, literally and otherwise, matters, especially when the people who try to take it don't think you'll fight back. Owning. Land means more than just holding a deed. It's about history, family, and responsibility. And sometimes it takes standing up, not just with a badge, but with truth and grit to remind people of that. That ranch is staying right where it belongs. So am I.